Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're taking a look at two new figures from the Adventures of Indiana Jones retro collection toy line, and these are two figures from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and these are figures that we have never had before. So we have a Temple of Doom version of Indiana Jones where he's missing a sleeve and comes with a machete, and for the first time ever we also have Short Round. So let's take a closer look at these on the card, and then we'll open them up and see what they look like out of the packet. So yes, these are two brand new figures designed to look like retro style figures, like the figures from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and these are the two figures that you are getting so far from the Temple of Doom. This is wave 2 of these retro collection figures. So here we have Indiana Jones, and as you can see we've got a nice image of Indy on the front. Because this is from Temple of Doom, you can see Indy has had a little bit of action there. He's missing a sleeve, his shirt is ripped open, and he comes with a machete. The fronts of these cards look really nice. Unlike the Star Wars retro collection figures, they haven't put any of the sort of faux aging on them, so there's a little bit of legal bits on the front. We've got the ages 4+ at the top, and then choking has a small parts on the right. Otherwise the card looks really nice, and it is really reminiscent of those old vintage cards. Now, I've previously reviewed the first Indy figure that I got, which is from wave 1, which is just the standard Indy figure, and that comes on really flimsy card. You can see this is basically sort of thick paper, but for this second wave they've actually put them on proper card. This is much thicker. This is like a traditional card back thickness card, and it makes such a difference to this. This feels like a proper figure, and something that you would want to pay good money for. So that is quite a big improvement. I wasn't quite sure why they put these on such flimsy cards, so now they've released these second ones, they are feeling much nicer. We turn it over, and on the back it shows you the two figures from this wave, which are from Temple of Doom. There are actually 5 figures in the wave. The other figures are from the Last Crusade. So today I'm just going to be reviewing these two because this is Temple of Doom. So you can see we get Indy and we get Short Round. At the bottom, as I've shown previously, this is just all legal sort of text, which is the same text that will be on this bit of paper underneath. So it's a bit of a shame they have to duplicate it so many times, but this is how cards are made these days. So that is the Indy card. He's looking really nice. I bought 2 of these figures because it's always nice to sort of be able to compare how they are packaged and if there's any sort of obvious flaws in the packaging. So my second Indy, which I have here, is actually a lot worse looking. I can see there's paint sort of overspray on his hand there, and there's odd sort of, I don't know what it is, it's like it's melted down the side of this blister. So when this blister was put on, it's all been distorted. This one is really quite nice, and I figure I'm not going to take off the card. This one, the card is looking quite rough, so I'm going to take this one off the card, and yeah, we'll be able to take a better look at the bad sort of paint application on that Indy figure. But let's take a look at Short Round and see how he looks. So here is Short Round. This is the first time that we have got this sort of retro version of Short Round, and I have to say it straight away looks really nice. I like the fact he's a small figure. He still looks fairly detailed from what I can see. A lot of these retro collection figures have been very soft on the sculpt, so when you get them out of the packet we'll be able to compare it to some vintage ones and we'll see. This one doesn't look too bad. There's a fair bit of detailing on him, and he just comes with a little torch there. It's got a really nice picture there of Short Round holding Indy's whip, and it may have been nice to actually give him the whip as an accessory, because at the moment he looks fairly sort of basic, shall we say. We've got the figure and the torch, so maybe another accessory with him because he's such a small figure might have been a nice sort of addition. If we turn it around, you can see this the same back as the other card. But what we really need to do is open these up and see what they look like. As I showed you, there's a sort of flaw on one of these Indy figures, an obvious flaw, so that's the one of those I'm going to open, and I only bought one of Short Round, so we'll open both of these and take a closer look at the figures. Okay, so they are now out of the packet, and we're going to start by taking a look at the Indy figure. So this is Indy. He comes with a machete only. We don't get a whip, we don't get a bag or anything like that. It is just the machete. So it feels like a very basic figure because of that. The other Indy figure that came out sort of first, which is this one, comes with the gun and the whip. He does have the spring-loaded arm as the other one did, so you can do that spring-loaded action and fire his machete off. As you can see, the machete doesn't stay in particularly well. Let me go and grab that. So there we go, I found it again. It does ping out quite easily. The rest of the figure, much like the first Indy figure that I've reviewed, the sculpt on it feels really soft indeed, especially when you start looking at the front of him. If you look at the front of his shirt, there's almost no detailing on that at all. I have another version of this figure that I was sent by Ryan, which is a sort of custom version using original Indy figure parts, which is this one. And if we compare the two, you can see how different they look. The sculpting and stuff that's on the front of this shirt is really detailed. You can see every fold and every sort of crevice and all the little buttons. When you look at this modern version, it just has nothing going on. It's so sort of basic and so simplified. I really don't know why they are doing this with these figures. It may be something to do with how they're produced or how they're sculpted, but it just looks so basic. I also think on this figure, the colour of his skin is it's sort of a neon pink. It just doesn't look like flesh colour. Again, I'll bring in my other version here. You can see that's like a nice sort of flesh coloured version of Indy. This one, it's sort of a strange orangey hue. It just doesn't feel like a human flesh colour tone. It just doesn't feel right to me. The plus sides on this figure that are compared to the other Indy that I've reviewed, which had a massive gap between his sort of leg and his body. You can see that big gap there. That has been improved on this one. So the legs actually do seem to fit on very nicely. It's a nice snug fit, and when we rotate them forwards, there's no sort of gaps or anything like that. He does, however, have a little bit of a bent leg. That was actually bent in the packaging. I've been trying to sort of bend it straight out again, but yeah, it is a little bit on the wonky side. Otherwise, I'm quite underwhelmed with this figure. I thought it would be more exciting when I got it out of the packet, but actually when you sort of see it in hand, it just looks really quite simply and basically done. There's a little bit of detailing here. You can see we've got a bandage wrapped around his hand that's been painted on, but if we turn to the other hand, you can just see how bad the paint application is. There's paint everywhere over this hand. I was going to pick it off, but I thought I'd just show you what it looks like. So you can see all the paint has gone over the hand, and that's because they have spray painted this part of the arm. The hand is the actual colour of the plastic, so this whole arm is this sort of pink colour, and they've sprayed all of this to match the shirt, which seems a strange way of doing it considering this bit of plastic is made out of that sort of beige material, and they've painted on his chest. Why didn't they make his arm out of this beige material and just paint on his hand to match? Now we've got this whole area that's painted, and you can see there's sort of a bit of underspray here, so it's a slightly pink hue on the shoulder joint there. Just feels a little bit cheaply done, but I've said that about the previous figures. I've said that about all the retro collection Star Wars figures. They just feel fairly cheap in how they are made, and this one, because he doesn't have any accessories with him, yeah, for the price, he's quite a letdown. I feel, you know, you should have at least had more with him. Just adding a bag as an accessory would have been an amazing thing, because it would have looked so much more like the photo they put on the card front. You can see here, he's holding the machete, which is there, and he's got this bag strapped over his shoulder. So give him the bag. And we know in the Last Crusade versions of the figures, they've got a bag accessory that they give to the Indy version there. So give this one an accessory as well. So we have the machete and the bag. Just seems a little bit sort of cheap on their part. But, you know, it is a new Indy figure. It's the first time we've had this sort of figure to add to our collections. But as I showed, you can actually make your own version. This version that I've showed here was made using the map room version of Indy, swapping apart, I think, the armours from Salah, and then that's the head off the standard version of Indiana Jones. So that is actually quite a nice sort of custom that can be made from vintage original parts, if you can find them, which that is the problem with the vintage figures. They are incredibly hard to find. So if you can't find that, then this version will have to do. It's by no means perfect, as I say, but, and you know, really it is a bit of a letdown. But in this day and age, I think you just have to get used to that with Hasbro figures. So you know, I would still recommend buying it because it's a new Indy figure, but it's certainly not very impressive, and yeah, the paint application is pretty poor, but yeah, it's a new figure, I guess. Now we come on to the short round figure, which is, I have to say, actually doesn't look too bad. I think the face sculpt is pretty nice. It does actually look like the character, but the skin tone on this one is much better. In fact, if they'd used this skin tone on Indy, I think Indy would look a whole lot better. It's a lot more sort of realistic sort of flesh tone. The figure is fairly limited in what it does articulation wise. It is missing the knee joint, but you can still rotate his legs and they still splay out a bit like the other figures. For some reason they've sort of made his jacket, or the sort of the inner part of his jacket, a separate piece. So this is actually sort of put on, I'm going to say, I don't think you can possibly get that off. Maybe you can get that off, but it's a separate piece sort of moulded out of a different plastic, so you can actually sort of fold it away and see his shirt underneath. I'm going to say, as far as retro figures goes, you wouldn't actually have had that sort of technology back when they were making these in the 80s, sort of 1980, 1983, something like that. So that doesn't feel very retro to me. That's quite a modern way of doing a figure, but it sort of works on this one. It's sort of, you can get away with it. I'm guessing they're doing that to try and justify the fact that this is still exactly the same price as that figure there, even though it's about 2/3 the size, and again comes with very little as far as accessories go. We've got this torch here, sort of flaming torch, which feels like the paint should have been a little bit more exciting on that, because that doesn't feel like a flame. It's just sort of a bit of yellow something coming out of it. And on this figure, I have to say, I think his head feels like it's going to break off very easily. It feels really loose and really sort of floppy. I sort of turned it around and was worried that I actually was going to snap that. I think I said that about the Indy figure as well. The Indy figure's head feels like you're going to snap it, but this one feels even more like you're going to snap it. Again, paint application on this one is not too bad, but there's fairly minimal paint to get wrong. The shoes are painted, the hands are painted, there's a little bit of detail on his face there, a few little oversprays on his hat, but actually it's not a bad figure. I would have liked more accessories with it to justify the price point. I picked these up for $14.99, these figures, because they are, as far as I know, Target exclusives in the US. So getting them here in the UK, I was just happy to get them at any price. But yeah, $14.99 does feel expensive. If Indy had a couple more accessories, you might have sort of thought, oh, actually that's not too bad. And with Short Round, you really would have liked a little bit more with him. Maybe, as I say, he could have come with a whip or something like that. Yeah, for $14.99 you don't get a lot for your money with this one. Overall, I have to say these figures don't look too bad, even after everything I've said here. I'm getting quite used to the sort of the disappointment that I feel when opening a modern figure from Hasbro. The sculpts on them are very soft, there's very little detail in them, and the way they've been made and the way they've been put together feels like they are done as cheaply as they possibly can be, which is such a shame, because these figures are really aimed at collectors, and what collectors like are nice, good quality figures. And when they're on sale for $14.99, I would expect them to be pretty good quality, but actually when you get them out of the packet, they are fairly disappointing. But as I've said in my previous video, if you want to get original Indiana Jones figures, they are incredibly hard to find and incredibly expensive when you do find them. So any figure is a nice figure to get. I just would like a little bit more effort put into these, and these are two brand new sort of retro style figures, and they do look, you know, pretty retro, but there's just bits about them that are not quite right. I really don't like the colouring on this Indy. He just looks so sort of neon pink. It just doesn't feel right. And the Short Round figure should just come with more stuff. He's such a tiny figure. If you think of old Star Wars figures like Yoda or something like that, it came with lots of accessories to sort of counteract the fact it was a small figure. This guy comes with a torch, that's it. Feels very disappointing when you open it, but don't let that put you off. I do actually think they're quite nice. I'm very pleased that I got them. I just would have liked more for the money that I'm spending on them, and I will be getting all of the other Indy figures because I want to sort of have a nice collection of them. So I will be picking up the Last Crusade figures when I can find them. Currently I've only got one of those, so I will grab the others as soon as I find them, and I'll review those as I get them. So hopefully this video has been of interest to you, and you've seen the sort of highs and lows of these figures. They're not perfect, but they're certainly worth getting. If you have enjoyed it, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.